Willoughby Player was the president of Bennett College, which is in Greensboro, North Carolina, literally across the street from North Carolina A&T. And so she's president at the sort of height of the movement, especially as the sit-ins are beginning to happen. Very often we will go in our mind to February 1st, 1960, and we think about these four male students from North Carolina A&T, and we see them, sort of walking away from their first sit-in. And then although it's not the first of sit-ins that are happening, it's the one that gets the media attention. What we often don't know, though, and what I try to lift here in the book, is that the idea for these sit-ins had been come up with, it had been inspired by these students from Bennett. Bennett is an all-female school, so all of these Black women had come up with this idea for a sit-in. They had been working with and meeting with some students from North Carolina A&T, which was men. But their president, Willoughby Player, said, why don't you hold off and wait until the beginning of the spring semester? Because they were going to do it around the holidays. And she didn't want there to be this disruption of their momentum. However, the men went, February 1st before everybody else could get it together. So by that second day, you've got all of these Bennett women. And so I just want to name that because they jumped the gun and they knew that they were jumping the gun, right? But even prior to that, Willoughby Player had been making some moves and making some choices there in Greensboro that others were afraid of. So I'm going to hop back to something we were talking about earlier as it relates to the Black church. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted to come to Greensboro, North Carolina, and was looking for a place to speak. Not a single Black church would open up their doors to allow Martin Luther King Jr. to speak there. Willoughby Player said, you can come and speak at our chapel at Bennett College. Wow. And so when King speaks in Greensboro, it's on the campus of Bennett College. Some of the young men who participate in that very first day of the boycott or the sit-in on February 1st were there in the audience, listening and being inspired and equipped by that action that Willoughby Player makes as the president of Bennett College. She says, y'all are afraid to open the doors? That's okay. We'll just open up the doors of our chapel here. And I'm going to make sure that my students also get a chance to hear. So she has speaker systems and other types of ways of communicating so that everybody could get a chance to hear King on that day. So that's just a couple of the things that she does. But then as her students begin to get arrested during these sit-ins, she says, well, this is a part of their education. We're teaching them liberal education. We're teaching them to be politically aware, civically engaged. So they won't get, they won't get punished for that. If anything, I'm going to have the teachers go to the jail and make sure that they can continue to learn. So she gave her teachers permission to go to the jails to be able to continue to teach the students, to make sure that they got their homework, to make sure that everything was continuing. And she says, no, don't get, that's a part of your learning too. That type of activism is a part of your learning too. So those types of stances, when the president of North Carolina A&T was saying nope, he was sort of, leaning in to the political pressure and not allowing his students to do the same thing, she makes this bold step and says, oh, absolutely not. The Bennett Bells, as the women of Bennett are called, will be participating and they'll have my full support as president. When I was interviewing a couple of the women that I feature in the book, and then others that don't fully get featured, but I also interviewed, were Bennett Bells. So they were students at Bennett College during the time. And one described to me how they actually created a system to do babysitting for other women who wanted to vote, but couldn't really fully take off and leave. So they would go to people's homes, babysit the children so that the mothers could go and vote. That was a part of how they thought of themselves as participants in this civic invention, right? This idea of democracy that is so fragile within our nation. This woman helped create the type of space as the president for her students to say, even if we can't necessarily vote right now, we can make sure that the people who can have the freedom to do so.